This picturesque corner of Connecticut has a lengthy maritime history. The town of Groton is the self-described submarine capital of the world.
I just got goosebumps. It makes me feel very patriotic.
Home to a US naval base and the world's first nuclear-powered submarine.
This is what I was talking about, where the guys shoot through here.
USS Nautilus was launched here in the 1950s and spent more than 25 years in service before becoming a tourist attraction.
Did you see this? Look up here.
Oh, yeah, cool.
Decades on, the region still hosts one of only 2 private shipbuilders in the US capable of producing nuclear-powered subs.
These here are the spacer blocks that they use on the submarine to put gaps between the hull sections so they can do the work that they need to.
Local businesses like this steel fabrication firm work to supply the shipyards.
We are very, very busy. We have no shortage of work. Our marketing dollars are not spent on future sales, it's spent on human resources.
The US Navy aims to procure 2 Virginia-class submarines each year, having fallen behind in its goal of increasing its overall nuclear-powered attack fleet from around 50 boats to at least 66. At the same time, work is also ramping up on the new Columbia-class ballistic missile sub, due to start being delivered from 2027.
So these are the old Bridgeports?
Yep, the old Bridgeports here.
Yeah.
We have our dual lathe,
yeah.
Our little digibender that does heavy duty.
Democrat Joe Courtney represents this part of Connecticut in Congress. He acknowledges the pressures on the sector, but has rejected concerns that it could compromise Australia's plan to obtain its own nuclear-powered boats under the AUKUS deal.
We did in our high-definition plasma, which is our large plasma.
You know, honestly, if AUKUS really works the way it should, there should be contribution into this program from the UK and Australia, and I think that shows that that's a full force multiplier that can really help take on the larger demand.
The Australian government will soon reveal which nuclear-powered submarines it plans to acquire and how long it will take. The new boats will replace the existing Collins-class fleet, but there are concerns about a capability gap, as the ageing submarines are retired and the new ones are built in Adelaide.
We recognize where Australia is and how when its capability begins to diminish, and of course we will address all of that in that pathway that we create.
There's speculation Australia could obtain a number of ready-made submarines from the United States to help ease the capability gap, but that idea has received pushback at some of the highest levels of Congress. In a leaked letter sent to President Joe Biden late last year, 2 influential senators, Jack Reed and James Inhofe, warned against selling or transferring nuclear-powered attack subs to Australia before the US Navy meets its own targets, arguing the country's submarine industrial base could be pushed to breaking point.
At this stage of the negotiations process, I think that would have been particularly unwelcome news because it opens up a layer of political risk that I don't think people necessarily anticipated.
Senator Reid, a Democrat, has since insisted he's a proud supporter of AUKUS, while Senator Inhofe, a Republican, has retired. But the leak raised concerns in Canberra and prompted a bipartisan group of American politicians, including Joe Courtney, to publish their own correspondence to the President, arguing US shipbuilding capacity could be ramped up.
The fact of the matter is, if the demand signal is strong and the resources are there, you can build out more capacity, certainly more than exists today. So I think that this is an important issue that everybody has to stay focused on, very intensely. But I don't think people should just sort of shrug their shoulders and walk away from, what I think is a really smart security agreement.
The Northern Neck National Heritage Area
Republican Rob Whitman also signed the letter. He's argued against selling submarines to Australia, but believes an American boat jointly operated between the two countries should be sent to patrol Australia's area of responsibility as an interim measure.
I think it would be dual crewed. I think, too, that the command of the submarine would be a dual command, so you'd have an executive officer and a commanding officer that would jointly operate the submarine. And then the tasking of the submarine. As you know, every submarine that goes on mission is tasked. I think you'd have a joint tasking by Australia and the United States. And this, I believe, is the segue to Australia being able to operate its own submarine.
Analysts say that would likely raise questions about Australian sovereignty.
If there are crews from the US and Australia on board, in time of crisis, who gets the go, no-go veto on the use of a particular vessel for a particular task? I think you will definitely see Australians on board US submarines training, for example. Whether we get straight to the point of there's a combined and integrated Australian and US crew on a US submarine, that will be interesting to see.
Beijing has repeatedly criticised AUKUS, accusing the three member countries of targeting China and describing Australia's pursuit of nuclear-powered submarines as a waste of money. But supporters in Washington argue the deal is vital to security in the Indo-Pacific.
China is a large country that is going to be a global power for a long time to come. They have an absolute right to do that. They don't have a right to tell Australia what they can and can't do. They just don't.
The federal government insists AUKUS is on track with an announcement due by the end of March. In the meantime, the debate in the US has prompted even more questions about the best way forward.
There's no such thing as 100% in politics. And again, the practical logistical questions, which are now going to be really front and center starting in March. But I do think that by and large, the feeling is strong that people want to make this work.